I'd like to show you how to cast on in the round for reversible lace. You could work Italian cast on and just join it in the round, but I find it's very easy to twist that. This method is slower and it involves waste yarn, but I think it's easier to get it right on the first try. I have cast on with the gray yarn, doesn't matter which cast on you use, and I've worked back and forth for several rows. Try to work at least 5 rows. 6 or 7 or 8 would be better. I worked in garter stitch because it lies flat, but you can do stockinette if you prefer. In this case, I intend to reuse that gray yarn in another project. It's still attached to the skein. So I knit 1 row in this thin, slippery blue yarn, and that is true waste yarn. That piece of yarn is only a couple yards long, which means I'll be able to unpick it later from either or both ends. And then the green yarn is my project yarn, and I've knit across with the green yarn. The other thing you need to know is I have cast on half the number of stitches I intend to have at the end. So I have cast on 1 stitch for every knit-purl pair. In this case I've cast on 20 stitches, but at the end I will have 40 stitches of 1x1 ribbing. So let's fold this around to get into the round. And let me find my working yarn. So there are 2 parts of this technique that I really need to show you with this video. The first part is how to create the purl stitches. So I've done 20 knits, but I want to have knit-purl pairs. How am I going to get my purls? I start at the beginning of the round. I am going to slip that first stitch, slip it purlwise because I don't want to change its stitch facing, and I'm slipping it with the yarn in the back. Then I'm going to bring the yarn forward because I want to purl, and I purl into the running thread. That's where my purl comes from. And you can see having thin waste yarn is helpful here. You want to be able to see your running threads. So let me do more of that. So yarn to the back and slip, yarn to the front and purl in the running thread. Yarn to the back and slip, yarn to the front and purl in the running thread. Yarn to the back and slip, and purl in the running thread. And let's just do one more. Slip, and then purl in the running thread. Now the other thing that I would like to do is I would like to weave in my tail as I go. Let me get my tail up here. Okay, I would like to weave that in. So I'm going to slip some stitches so I can get back to the beginning of the round. Get a hold of my tail. What I'm going to do here is a combination of knitting backwards and working what, when it's done in short rows, is called a shadow wrap. You might call it a twin stitch or a doppelganger stitch. So I start by slipping the last stitch of the round back. Slip it back, so slip it from right to left. Now I'm going to bring the waste yarn stitch up onto my left needle tip. Wrap the tail from back to front, so you're wrapping it counterclockwise. So up the back, across the top, and down the front, and then pass the waste yarn over. And I'm going to slip this over just a moment so you can really look at it and see what I have. So what I've done is I have sort of doubled the stitch. I have 2 stitches there that are identical, and I will treat them as if they are conjoined twins. So I'm going to do that again. So slip a stitch back from right to left, bring up the waist yarn stitch, wrap counterclockwise, pass the waist yarn stitch over. And I'm going to keep doing that. This technique, by the way, can be used to weave in ends in other projects, so it has a use beyond what I'm doing here. And I will do this for 5 to 10 stitches, depending on the project and the yarn. You, of course, want to do enough of these that you have confidence that the yarn tail is not going to pop out of the project when you are done. Now, because of the length of this video, I don't have time to show you the whole way to the end of the cast on, but I will walk you through what you would need to do to finish it off. So what you would do, remember our working yarn is over here, I would work slip, purl in the running thread, slip, purl in the running thread the whole way down this needle, and then when I go to do it over here, it's going to be slip these together. So just treat that like it's one stitch, and when I purl in the running thread, that running thread is doubled, but you just purl in it, and I'm going to do that all the way across. And so when I get to here, then I'm at the beginning of the round. And notice this technique means that this connecting thread right here is doubled, so that gives you a good firm connection at the beginning of the round. So when I get to that round, the end of that round, then I've made my purl stitches, so I'll have the correct number of stitches. My next round will be 1 by 1 ribbing, and again with the 1 by 1 ribbing, I'm going to knit these 2 stitches together for each of these little pairs, so I'll just do that for all of them. After that, I can start my reversible lace pattern, and I'll work about an inch or so of fabric to establish the fabric, to make sure that I don't have my cast on twisted and make sure it's all good. And then after an inch or two of fabric, I will come back and I will pick out this blue thread. And then I can unravel the gray yarn and use it in another project. So there you go. That technique will allow you to cast on in the round for reversible lace and have the same lovely tubular structure that you would get if you had worked Italian cast on.